Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you to everyone who is online and in the room in Pretoria. It's lovely to see these faces in front of us, and everyone who is online, thank you so much for logging onto our YouTube page. If you have any questions while we are during the presentation, feel free to ask questions in the comment section. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation. At the end of our presentation, we'll have a Q&A session, which will be joined by one of our MWF alumni, Khanyisa Mapipa. So we will get going straight away. My name is Nomakawa Sibia. I am the Emerging Voices Specialist at the US Embassy, and I am responsible for programs that are for ages 18 to 35. Mandela Washington Fellowship is one of those programs. Just to give you a bit of an overview on Mandela Washington Fellowship, we're going to start with the Young African Leaders Initiative. This is broken up into three sections. We've got the Yali Network, we've got Mandela Washington Fellowship, and we also have the Yali Regional Leadership Centers. Let me just do this here. Okay. The Yali Network, many of you have already heard of it. Some people signed up for today's information session through the Yali Network. This is, anybody can join the network. All you have to do is go onto our website, the Yali website, and sign up, put up your details, and you'll be informed of any types of engagements that we have, as well as courses. The Yali Network opens you up to a few of our resources, including MOOCs. MOOCs are our online courses. They are free, and anyone can participate in them. And then we have the Mandela Washington Fellowship, which is what today is about, and I'll get into in a few minutes. And then we also have the Yali Regional Leadership Centers. So RLC, short for the Regional Leadership Centers. This is where we bring, it's pretty similar to Mandela Washington Fellowship, except there is no exchange portion of it. So it is for Southern African residents, and we host this at the UNISA RLC in Midrand. And what we do there is it's pretty much constructed the same way as Mandela Washington Fellowship with the three tracks, but you don't get to go to the US and do the full 6-week program. So the Mandela Washington Fellowship, this started in 2014, and it is dedicated and aimed at empowering young people between the ages of 25 to 35. We do not exclude those between the ages of 21 to 24. We do select, we have exceptions for those that we see they're doing amazing work in their communities. And we have included in the past any individuals that are between the 21 to 24 age group that are doing amazing work in their communities. The way that we conduct the Mandela Washington Fellowship is that it includes academic coursework, leadership training. Apologies, we're just having a technical glitch. That's okay. All right, so as I said, the Mandela Washington Fellowship is dedicated to the age groups 25 to 35, as well as 21 to 24 in exceptional cases. It includes academic coursework. We've got leadership training, as well as networking. What does that mean? The academic coursework means that you are based at an institution in the US, an academic institution, usually a university, and you get to spend your 6 weeks based at that university, engaging with other like-minded individuals, and you get to focus on the 3 tracks, which I will get into shortly. We have leadership training as well, and we have networking, where you get to engage with other fellows that are part of the program, as well as students that you will meet, lecturers at the universities. The 2024 application launched on August 15, which was 2 days ago. And the applications close on September 12th. The values of Mandela Washington Fellowship include diversity and inclusion, which means that we look at people of different backgrounds. It's a very diverse opportunity and program where you will get to meet people of different backgrounds, people who come from different spheres, different industries, and it's really an opportunity for you to network with people who are like-minded, but also who come and bring different things to the table. They get to contribute in their different ways with your different skills as well as your knowledge. The alumni network is comprised of nearly 6,500 fellowship alumni since 2014. We recruit about 700 participants on an annual basis throughout Africa. In South Africa, we recruit about 40 per year. And how we divide this up is we usually select about 10 fellows from each of our regions. Our regions are broken up into 4. So we have, if you are familiar with the embassy, we've got the embassy in Pretoria, we've got the US consulate in Johannesburg, the US consulate in Durban, as well as Cape Town, and we are responsible for different regions across the country. So in Pretoria, we're responsible for Limpopo as well as Mpumalanga and the northern Gauteng areas. And Cape Town is responsible for Cape Town, which is the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, as well as Northern Cape. Durban is responsible for KwaZulu-Natal, and Johannesburg is responsible for the Joburg region, Northwest, as well as Free State. So these are the people that you would be speaking to if you were applying and going through the entire process of interviews, etc. These would be your point of contacts. We will share this right at the end of the presentation, so you can take down notes in terms of if you have any kind of questions, who you should direct those questions to. Lastly, sometimes you will get a few shady dealings, people calling you up, trying to make you pay for things. Please note that none of our programs have a fee attached to them. So your application for the Mandela Washington Fellowship does not include a fee. All right, so as I mentioned, we work with different institutes in the US across different states. We select 700 fellows on an annual basis, and this is a 6-week program. It's a very intensive program, full day for 6 weeks that you are there in the US. And we are placed at 28 different leadership institutes across the United States. We focus on 3 tracks being leadership in business, leadership in civic engagement, leadership in public management. What does that mean? We've got different sub-themes across these tracks. So in the leadership in business track, we focus on innovation and technology, emerging markets and youth population in Africa. These are the different themes that you would be focused on while you are based at an institute. Business plan development, financial management, business ethics, intersection of business with civil society and government, and the role of private-public partnerships. So if you feel that these are the sub-themes that you would like to focus on and you think you could benefit from this for your business, mostly entrepreneurs are identified for the leadership in business track. For civic engagement, the different sub-themes that we focus on are advocacy, strategic planning, organizational development, intersection of civil society with business and government. And the kind of people or individuals that we usually attract under our civic engagement is your NGOs. Those who are very focused on their community development would fall under civic engagement. And then we also have public management. So public management has mostly to do with policymakers. And what we focus on is citizen engagement, resource management, financial management systems, and intersection of government with business and civil society. Onto the leadership institutes. Each institute features several different core components. And we, in these components, we include the academic coursework. You'll also get training while you're in the US. We have different Ignite talks where you have discussions and conversations with those who are on the program with you. We do site visits around the different states that you will be based. So not everybody goes to the same place. People get, we identify the best suitable institute for the specific the specific tracks that you'll be focused on, and we'll do site visits during your tour. We also have cultural visits. You get to build collaborative relationships. You get to participate in community service, and you also have unscheduled networking time. One thing to mention is that each institute is very unique and will feature different topics and activities, meaning that your experience will not be the same across the board. The final part of the program is what we call the Mandela Washington Fellowship Summit. This takes place in Washington in the final week of the 6-week program. This is the concluding event. All 700 fellows participate. So this is when everyone comes together and you really get to meet all the fellows that have participated from the different countries across Africa. You get to network. You are involved in panel discussions with US leaders from the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. So we also have something called the professional development experience. This is a separate part of the program. When you're applying, you will see you have an option to select whether you are also applying to PDE. What this means is that we have a 4-week placement, and this is for those who want to remain in the US for 2 to 4 weeks. Usually they return around September, early September. And this is if you feel that you would benefit from being based at an organization where you get to do some shadowing, you get to do additional work while you're in the US, sharpening your skills, getting to meet professionals in your space. And how this works is that you would submit a supplemental application essay to apply for this. It's really just an additional page, I can say, to the application. It's not completely separate from the application that you would be filling in for Mandela Washington Fellowship. It just means you are writing an additional essay. You gain practical training, you learn transferable skills, you expand your networks, and you get to apply the concepts that you have learned during the experience. Up to 100 fellows are selected. Here in South Africa this year, for 2023, we selected 3 participants for the professional development experience. Why 3? Most people cannot take that much time off from work because it does mean an additional 2 to 4 weeks in your experience, which means about 2 months that you've been away from work. So we find that we have fewer people applying for the PDE experience. And then when you return from the US, you are considered a USG, which is the US government program alumni. An alumni is an amazing thing at the US Embassy. We stay in contact with our alumni on an ongoing basis, and we involve them as much as possible in our different programs that we run. And there are different grants opportunities, as well as an opportunity to join our SAUSAC association, which is association for alumni that have been part of any programs offered by the US Embassy. Some of the benefits and opportunities that are open to alumni include grants. This is provided to fellowship alumni, and it includes funding for professional collaboration with others in the alumni network. We also have something called the reciprocal exchange, which is a different component of MWF. What it means is that another student or a lecturer or someone that you feel you've engaged with while you are in the US, and you feel that they might be able to contribute on your project in your community here in South Africa. So it's the other way around, where someone from the US gets to travel to South Africa and be based in SA for a specific amount of time, a few weeks, working on a specific project that you would be working on with them. This is an amazing opportunity, and we get to have about 3 reciprocal exchanges on an annual basis. The fellowship leverages stakeholder expertise to deliver a suite of virtual programming for fellowship alumni and selected candidates. And the US Department of State's International Exchange alumni community is very valuable, as I mentioned, for grants and networking resources. We have our alumni coordinator right at the back. Dumisha, if you could just raise your hand for any questions that you may have with regards to our alumni association, as well as different opportunities that are open to our alumni. All right, so when you go on the MWF experience, what does that mean in terms of provisions? What is covered by the US Embassy? What do you need to be aware of when you're applying for things like your visa, etc.? So we offer J1 visa support. What this means is that you get to go to the US without having to pay for your visa. We pay all expenses. It is a round trip travel from the fellow's home city to the United States. Your domestic US travel is required by the program. It's a 6-week leadership institute that you would be based at. And then you also get to go on the concluding summit. There's a limited accident and sickness benefit plan, meaning that if anything happens while you are in the US, you are covered through a health plan. This is one of the benefits of our this is one of the benefits of our fellowship. So all expenses are paid, including your health cover. You can obviously still have your medical aid as an additional cover, but for most people, this is enough to make sure that you are safe while you're on the trip, right? And then in terms of housing and meals during the program, you are covered for accommodation. Your flights would also be covered by the US Embassy. And then you get an optional 4-week professional development experience, which is all inclusive as well. What the fellowship does not include is funds to supplement your fellow income. So that means we cannot subsidize, or we cannot cover whatever income you would miss while you're on the 6-week period or the 6-week program. You would need to have a conversation with your employer and make sure that your bases are covered while you are out of the office. And then also baggage fees in excess of the standard amount. Our fellows get to have two pieces of luggage while you travel to the US. Anything additional is to the expense of the fellow. You also have you don't have your medical co-payments and expenses. If you go to practitioner, this would come out of your own pocket. High-tech devices, as already mentioned, we have a 30-day grace period upon your return to South Africa after the program returns. And program participants, very important, must return to their home countries for at least 2 years once you've completed the program. There's no paid employment during the time that you are in the US. And then also dependents may not join you on the trip. And there are no visa transfers or extensions that are given. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Murunga Mutiba, and she will cover eligibility, which is the criteria for how we select MWFers, as well as any Q&As and what the experience is usually like for our Mandela Washington Fellows. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Moronga Mutiba, as Tawe mentioned, and I work as the Emerging Voices Coordinator for the US Embassy, and I form part of the team that is the National Coordinator for the rest of South Africa. So as Tawe mentioned, I will be covering the eligibility criteria and also will be covering some of the tips on when you're going to be submitting your application. So the Mandela Washington Fellowship is open to young African leaders who are between the ages of 25 and 35, although exceptional applicants ages 21 to 24 will be considered. In this year's cohort, we had somebody at the age of 21. She is a young author. She has been able to participate in this program. So it really just depends on how compelling your application is. You must also not be a US citizen or a permanent resident of the United States. And also you must be eligible to receive a United States J1 visa, and also not an employee or an immediate family member of the US employees. Proficient in reading as well. You must also be proficient in writing and in speaking English, and also citizens and residents of an eligible country. We are going to be covering the eligible countries now. You must also not be an alumni of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So you go 1 year, that is just about it. We're now going to be covering the eligible countries. So this fellowship program is open to most African countries, namely your Angola, Benin, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, Cabo Verde, Central African Republic, and so forth. Please just have a look at this, this countries. The streaming is going to be shared on our YouTube page. So if you want to look at it later, feel free to just go and check which countries are eligible. What makes an ideal Mandela Washington Fellow? You may be asking yourself that same question now. So what you need to do is really have a record of leadership and accomplishment. So any work that you do in your community, at work, or whatever you are currently busy with, make sure that it is something that is recorded. You must also demonstrate commitment to public or community service. It's part of the big sort of like work that you need to be doing to be a part of this initiative. You must also have the ability to work cooperatively in diverse groups. You must also have strong social and communication skills. You must also have knowledge and interest and professional experience in the preferred sector or track. My colleague Kawe covered the tracks that you can apply for, either civil or business or public. Also, you must have a commitment to return to South Africa and contribute skills and talents to build and serve their communities. So with the current cohort, they just came back to South Africa on the 4th of August. What we did with some of them is we had hosted them with the ambassador of South Africa, Dr. Ruben E. Brigady. So when you are doing great work in the United States, we do have that opportunity where we take you to go and meet with our principal officer, just so you can share what your experience was and also how you're going to plant those seeds in your local community. You must also everybody is welcome to apply. We do not discriminate against disability. The fellowship accommodates disability and it does offer support. It is committed to ensuring that Africans young leaders with disabilities can fully participate and will have or provide reasonable accommodations that will allow for a full and engaging experience. So if you are having a disability, that should not prevent you from applying. You can also have, you are more than welcome to read through about some of the FAQs when relating to disability. With this year's cohort as well, we did have a number of fellows that did have disability, but that didn't, prevent them from applying. And also when you are pregnant, you are more than encouraged to apply. We do welcome applications from pregnant women. We offer prenatal support during fellowship, and also fellows who are less than 20 weeks pregnant by the start of the fellowship can expect to be able to fully participate in the program, seeing that it's 6 weeks in the United States. You can read more again on the pregnancy FAQs using that link there. How to apply? Now, this is the number one question. As Kawe mentioned, applications opened 2 days ago on the 15th of August, and they close on the 12th of September. With the application, you need to, as you can see on the screen, there is that fellowship link, mwffellows.info.apply. If you can just copy that link, that is where you're going to be submitting your application. All applications should be done in this manner. We will not be accepting any manual applications. So you basically, with the application, are going to be requested for your basic information, your name, your address, phone, email, etc. And also, they will also require some of your CV or resume information. So any work that you're currently busy with now, we're going to be asking that for you to populate in the application. Also, personal statements, or what you can call motivational statements. So you'll need to write why you want to be chosen for next year's cohort. Also, they will include 4 short response answers or also 2 long responses. That is the personal statement. Also, you have to make sure that you apply using the language English. We only accept English for the application. Some of the tips that I can share in terms of like applying for the fellowship, please don't procrastinate. It really does take time for you to submit a great application. So make sure that you are, if we are done today, first thing to do is to make sure that you apply, because you do need that time. Also be original. We do like having original work. Write about and focus on what makes you stand out. If you're making an impact in your community, however big or small, be proud to do so. So anything really, if you're a tutor or if you're somebody that is participating in board meetings or community meetings, that's something that you can input in your application. You may never know just how inspiring that will be while we're going to be reading it. Use real world examples, so don't come up with things that didn't happen. Share examples from your work and highlight how you meet the selection criteria, as we've covered earlier. Also share your impact and goals, like share why you want to be a part of this program or fellowship and what you're going to do with that expertise as soon as you receive it in the United States. Plagiarism, obviously, we all know, but it's basically meaning that you mustn't take someone else's work or ideas. An example can be if you know of a fellow that has participated in the past and you ask them if you can just copy paste the work that they had submitted initially. That's not going to work. We do have a record of all the applications. Also avoid, being disqualified. To avoid being disqualified is you must use your own words and ideas. Avoid cut and paste. So don't copy someone else's work on the internet as well, just to paste it over your application. We'll be able to pick that up. Also, do you not use wording from other applicants, as I had mentioned, from our alums who have now returned to South Africa. The Department of State and IREX will be checking all applications for plagiarism. So whenever you're going to apply now, the application doesn't come straight to the US Embassy at the local level. It's going to go to DC first. So DC will be able to give us a bulk of all of the applications and who they recommend as participants that should be a part of next year's cohort. Application timeline, as we had said, applications opened on the 15th of August and they will be closing on the 12th of September. And as of November 2023, we will then be compiling semi-finalists interviews, and this will be done at a local level. So as soon as we receive the applications from DC, then local embassies are now going to be, or local embassy and consulates will be going through all the applications as recommended by DC. Also in late March next year, this is when you get a response from us to say you're either successful in your application after the interview as well, or if you need to try again next time. In May 2024, we start with the visa processing and we do the pre-fellowship orientation for finalists. So we will invite everybody that's been chosen to come for a pre-fellowship orientation or a pre-departure orientation. There we cover some of the tips on how you can best prepare your trip to go to the United States. Soon as 2024 June, you then are now traveling to the United States. Everything is paid for except for the exceptions that Kawe highlighted earlier on. Now we're going to play this video. This is just some of the experiences of our alums, and you can maybe just see how your experience is going to be in the United States. Oh, okay. All right. We won't be able to play the video now. However, Phil. Oh, okay. To see it. Okay. All righty. It doesn't allow me. Yeah. Alrighty. If you want to check out the video, please feel free to check on our social media. We will be obviously uploading some of the content of like previous fellows. Also, if you can check our Instagram page, you'll see there's a highlight under MWF. You will see it share some of the current cohorts experiences in the States. Some of them had the opportunity to meet with former President of the United States, Mr. Barack Obama. You are also able to meet with Senate or governors of state. It really is a life-changing experience. Each of them, when they came back, had something very positive to say. The next steps, of course, are, as we mentioned, you must apply. If you haven't copied the link, please feel free to do so now. fellows.info/apply, and then follow the fellowship on social media. Here you can get first knowledge about what's happening in terms of this exchange. You can follow on the Facebook or on Twitter, Instagram, and also on LinkedIn. We are available there. Mark your calendars with key application dates. As we have been sharing, please make sure you apply before the 12th of September. In terms of local point of view, these are the people that you can contact if you have any questions regarding your application. As we had mentioned earlier, we are national coordinators covering the rest of South Africa. But if you are from one of the specific regions, this will be your point of contact. So if you are from KwaZulu-Natal, Chantel Boo is your point of contact for any questions you have relating the application. KZN covering the whole province. So please just make sure you copy her email address there. It will come in handy if you have any questions. Grace Madi, she's responsible for Johannesburg, Free State, and the Northwest. So if you're from that region, copy that email address. Any questions that you will have, she'll be able to facilitate and assist you. Kim Williams covers the Western Cape region, Eastern Cape, and Northern Cape region. Feel free to also copy her email. And then Moronga Mutiba, that will be me. There's my email address. I cover regions Pretoria, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo. But if you do have a general question regarding the fellowship, you are more than welcome to also ask me, and I can also plug you with our colleagues in the various regions. Any questions that you may have, I am going to now call my colleague back on stage, and yeah, we'll be able to take your questions. Thank you.
We'll start in the room before we go over to the online audience. Questions in the room. Yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the information. My name is Shambani.
I'm
I've got, I think, 2 or 3 questions. So the first question is, we did mention that there is no supplementation, right, to your salary when you are in the US. So my question is, although you provide everything, meals and all of that, do you give additional money on the side, say for toiletry and all of that, or you just pay for everything and we need to cover other stuff?
So fellows do get a stipend while they are in the US.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, we have something called incidentals. This is about $250 that you receive before you depart South Africa to go to the US. So this amount of money is for anything that may happen during transit. We have, sometimes you've got situations where there's a delay with the flight during a layover, and you might need to be able to get food, want to take a shower at a lounge, anything like that. It's supposed to cover all of those incidentals in between.
Okay, so that will be for that and when you are also in the US.
Exactly.
All right. And then the second question is there preference for individuals that have participated in YALI before? Because there's a question about that on the application.
Sure. So I think, let me say, someone had a question online about how do you stand out, right? So if we see that you've already participated in different programs that we have, of course that will make you stand out, but I cannot say it gives you preferential treatment in any kind of way.
Thank you so much. My question is, in terms of preparing a CV, do we need to have some kind of proof, for example, recommendation letters?
Can I just stop you? I see that our alumni has just stepped into the room. Kanyisa Makipa. We will also, during our Q&A, for any questions that are related to strengthening your application, any tips that can be shared, she is our go-to person, as she has been on the program last year. She's one of our MWF fellows. So she has been through the process, as well as knowing how she completed the application, how long it took her, and what she needed to, how she needed to apply herself and make her application stand out. Right. Please continue.
Okay. My question is, as we prepare the CV, can we have some backup, like maybe recommendation letters or proof that you're actually doing what you said that you did?
Yes, so we actually, during our review, we have had a few additional documents, including referral letters. So it does strengthen your application. Can we quickly go over to online and then we'll come back to you?
Okay, so we have a question here from Asfile. Today I'd like to ask on the eligibility part. Can someone who is 20 years old at the time of the application, who will be 21 by the time of the fellowship, be able to apply?
All right, if you are 20 this year when you are applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, you will not be eligible to apply. If you are 20 at the beginning of 2024, but by the time of departure, you will, or rather let me say, if you're turning 21 during the year of your cohort, yes, you are eligible to apply. But as you mentioned earlier, MWF is really targeted at 25 to 35-year-olds, but we do look at exceptional cases where we have younger applicants who are doing amazing work in the communities.
To add to eligibility, should they not have any professional experience but years of experience in the community engagement?
I will say we have actually had applicants that didn't necessarily have professional experience. They did a lot of volunteer work. And one of those applicants was made it through the interview process and was selected as one of the candidates for MWF this year. If you can just remind me, can you remember how old he was? He was one of our youngest applicants as well, between the ages of 21 and 25. So it doesn't exclude you from the application, but obviously it really depends on how strong your application is.
Craig Lucas asks, thanks for the information. Apart from the community service rendered in the past, could we also include work to come in the future? For example, a confirmed project starting in January 2024.
Okay. So let me say we look at proof of work. So what have you done? What can you say? You can point. Let me just say, what can you point at and say, I've worked on this project? Think of yourself as like a CV, for example. If you haven't already started with the work, of course you can include it just to say you've got these kinds of projects upcoming, and these are the kinds of organizations that are interested in working with you. But really what we look at is the kind of work that you've already done. Let's go back to Ellen. We have a question.
Yes. My name is Sakina. I just wanted to ask, on the application when I was doing it, which I'm not done with it online, I saw some places where they gave you an option in case you don't have a certain maybe information, it gives you an option to click at a certain place. That makes somebody to be at a disadvantage because probably you don't have a certain qualification or a certain information. I don't know if you can get my question correctly.
Can you try and rephrase it?
Okay, maybe let's say an example, maybe you ask for a certain professional work, an example.
I didn't understand.
And then I don't have it with me or I've never done it. Does that make me at a disadvantage?
I cannot say it puts you at a disadvantage. So let me say this, we don't necessarily look at professions, right? We look at what kind of field you're in terms of industry and the kind of community work that you're doing.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
You had a question there?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, thank you so much. I wanted to ask, for foreigners that are currently present living in South Africa, would that be something that you would say I should go back to my foreign country, or I can apply whilst I'm in South Africa?
So you have to be a permanent resident of South Africa.
Okay.
For you to be able to apply.
Right. Follow up on that one. Also wanted to find out, in the event that a married couple is doing activities, is separate entities, can we apply both of us?
Can you apply as a couple or
No,
a
that's what I
separate
wanted.
entity?
We are working together, we do projects together in
Uh-huh.
different areas, but we sort of like separately. We've got different professions, but we're working in the same projects with different professions. So what I want is, since we married, when we do the application, should it be something that we should highlight that we're working hand in hand with do these activities?
I will say it doesn't disqualify you that you are both applying at the same time. That I can't say that it gives you any type of advantage, the fact that you are highlighting another fellow who's also applying, or let me say another applicant who's applying for the fellowship. Okay.
Hello, so my name is Adivao, and my question is, so post when you come back, right? What happens, like, do I still have to work for 2 years in South Africa? What happens if I'm still working on the island? And yeah, like, what happens, like, what kind of repercussions are there if I end up moving to work somewhere else?
That's a bit of a tough one, but I do know that we have fellows that went on the program in. Kanyisa, Uchatsa, did she go on the program in 2022 or the previous year? 2021. So she's already done her 2 years, because I know that she does a lot of work between different countries in Africa, and it hasn't been an issue.
Hello, my name is Alfie. I've got a few questions, but I'll just ask two for the time being. The first one would be, when stating the work that you've done within the community, like how far back should we go? Should I mention things that were also done in like high school and like primarily, for example, or would it be more advantageous to focus on the current work and disregard the work done in the past?
So I won't say that you must disregard the work you've done in the past, but we look at how involved are you right now in the community. So if you have done community work 10 years ago and you're no longer a very active citizen in that way, I don't think it necessarily would make your application stand out in any kind of way, as you're not actively doing any work in your community. And also, when we say community work, we don't mean in your residential community or anything like that. We mean even in your industry. If you are doing work that is impactful, is making a change in your profession, that also counts as someone who is making impactful community work.
And then,
Okay, so I'm going to try and do this as, this is from one person, 2 questions. Question 1 is, do you get penalized for reusing some of the answers from your own previous application? And the second question the person asks is, at the end of the application, there's typically an opportunity to upload a document that could strengthen your application. What would you suggest we upload? A letter of recommendation?
I'm going to hand over the second question to Kanyisa.
Okay.
I'll take the first question.
All right.
The first question being basically plagiarism for your own application in the previous year.
Yes.
So what we usually say to applicants from previous years is that try to tweak it as much as you can. Don't use the exact same wording. So don't do copy paste. Even if you're using the same content, try to just rephrase it and so it doesn't appear on our side as though it's a copy and paste job.
We have another question now.
Let's go to the second question.
Oh, yes, the second question was.
I think you said you want to come join us again.
All right.
Hi everyone, lovely to be here. So I'd say in terms of a supporting document, what I used was a letter of recommendation or letter of motivation, both from my employer as well as from the organization that I was volunteering from. So it was, work that I'd done in the scope of my employment as well as work outside that I'd done. So I think that really helped to bolster my application, because it's more than just what you are saying as an individual. It's also a secondary party that's saying, yes, I can confirm that this person has done this, and that in actual fact that they are a strong contributing member to the work that we do, right? So I would definitely encourage that you get a recommendation from either the person that is running the organization. So if you have a CEO of your NGO, that person, or if you are the CEO, then someone you work with in the organization to kind of co-sign that you do this work and that you've been beneficial. Sometimes you might be working alone in a community, and that's okay. But what you might want is, for instance, if you're working in a rural community and there's a traditional leader or someone that you've worked alongside to help the community in that way, you might want them to write a recommendation letter or a letter to say that, a letter of motivation to say that you've actually done the work that you say that you've done. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for panelists?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there a limit of that complimentary document that you sent? I'm thinking I could still get the recommendation, but if you've got certificates of recognition and stuff like that, and it's just more than one, is there like a limit of how much you can upload?
I don't think that there is, but what I would try not to do is inundate the people that are reading your application with too much. So try keep it to the things that are relevant to what you are doing, right? So like Noki was saying, certificates of qualifications and things like that, while they are important, are probably not important for this kind of application. What you would be looking for is a certificate of recognition for the work that you've been doing, right? So so try and limit it as much as possible. You do want your application to be as easy to read as possible. So try not to inundate the process.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Itumeleng. I'm not applying for this thing, but there's a question that I would like to pose. In fact, in 2014, I was on a panel of interviewers when Yali was conceived, with Brandon Jackson, and I think he's still at the consulate in Dover, in Trenton. I think he's still there. And during the time of Ambassador Patrick Gaspard. Okay, but what happened then is like, because I don't know how you're recruiting now, in terms of getting as many people as is possible, in terms of application. And then why I'm asking this question is because I see quite a number of seats are kind of like open. There's nobody, sitting there. So I'm just wanting to understand what's your reach like. Is it perhaps difficult for some people to be here? I mean, this is central town, I'm expecting that, should be, a lot easier. But another thing that I could take up with you afterwards, myself and the Demoachi, here, because in the past we have assisted the embassy in terms of getting, say you're looking for financial services people, we get like about 1,000 of them, into an auditorium, at Old Mutual in Centon or Santa Forbes or whatever. And then another industry could be engineers or whatever it is. So I just wanted to get a feel and a sense of, because I know in 2014, in South Africa, we had 50,000 people, applying. I don't know what your numbers are now.
Yeah, so I think between then and now, Yali and the Mandela Washington Fellowship has, we don't really even need to advertise it as much anymore, because many people know about the program. It's gaining a lot of popularity across the African continent. So we don't struggle in terms of numbers. And then in terms of attracting and doing these kinds of info sessions, we're doing info sessions across the country. Currently, we also join online, and we are streaming this entire info session, we're recording it. We're going to have it on our YouTube page, so that anybody who has questions, etc., can be able to watch it at a later stage. I think in the past year we had, I want to say, about over 2,000 applications, and we don't focus so much on numbers or quantity.
we're focusing more now on the quality of the applications that we receive.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Christopher Lamar. As a follow-up to what Ndate Mandela has just said, what has been your experience in terms of learners from the rural areas?
So we actually, this year, I think our 2023 for the Pretoria region, a huge majority of our applicants came from the Limpopo region, and many of them came from rural areas. So our reach is quite wide. We also travel out to different areas. We're going to peri-urban and rural areas where we amplify the program. We do a lot of interviews, community radio stations, to make sure that we're able to attract applicants, but also making sure that everyone has access to the information that we're sharing. Thank you. Do you have any questions on your Zoom?
This is I'm going to do it for break. Are academics encouraged to apply? Example, university lecturers. I'm asking because there's 3 leadership tracks. Focus more on business, civic, and public engagement, but not necessarily academic leadership.
All right. So we don't. I don't want to say we exclude certain professions from applying. If you feel that you would benefit from the program and you would benefit from one of the tracks, especially in terms of the coursework that is done, I would encourage anybody to apply. So we don't want to say we focus, on medical doctors or lecturers, or I don't want to be too specific in that. This really is open, and we invite anyone who feels that they would benefit from the program to apply. All right.
How many people are you guys going to be taking for the program, and how long will it take for the review process? When will people learn that they've been accepted?
All right. So in South Africa, we identify about 40 applicants per year, continent-wide 700. And in terms of our timeline, I think, let me just reshare this so that you can write these down. Our application timeline, we're closing applications on the 12th of September. We usually do our interviews in the first 2 weeks of January. And then fellows are informed, or the candidates that are interviewed are informed in the middle of March. So usually around 15th of March is when we communicate.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to, during the application process, can we reach out to alumni to get help? And is there a platform or maybe a WhatsApp group or something like that where we can find?
All right. So we don't necessarily facilitate, getting you in touch with our alumni, but we have many alumni who are very active on their social media pages, for example. They are constantly giving out tips. Kanyisa is one of those people who is even volunteering to mentor people along the way in terms of the application process. We also sometimes host online sessions. Depending on where you're coming from, I know that in the different areas, we're taking different approaches. But here in Pretoria, we're having this kind of information session where we've invited an alum to be able to converse with her, ask her any questions that you may have. And then also online, we do take questions. So you can go to our social media pages. You can write in our comments page. You can send us direct messages, DMs. And if you find that there is an MWF fellow, or rather an MWF who is on social media and is very much open to receiving communication, you are more than welcome to get in touch with them.
I wanted to find out, for entrepreneurs, are you looking for entrepreneurs who run businesses that have a social impact from the get-go? Or could the social impact, the fact that you are surviving and employing people, be enough? Because that on its own is something. Yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to find out, because I've heard a lot about community work and being involved in the community. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like she was saying, if you are the CEO, I don't know, would you ask your suppliers to write you a recommendation? Because let's say you're selling to the mass public, you can't ask one of your customers, for example. So I'm just trying to understand from the entrepreneurship track, how you guys see it. Yeah.
All right. So the main theme, I can say, of Mandela Washington Fellowship is social impact, right? So in all applications, whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you are applying under civic engagement or public management, when we are reading as reviewers, we're looking at what's the impact that the work you're doing has in your different communities and in your field of profession.
Just a follow up to that. So if you apply under one, say public management, but there's something also that you do that has to do with leadership. So how do you balance between the two?
So when you apply, you choose which one you feel you fall under.
Yeah.
But sometimes what happens is when we are reading the applications, and if you have a really strong application and want to move forward with your interview, we may slot you into a different track, depending on where we think you fit best.
Very specific. If you have done something like modeling and you haven't done it really on the African continent, but maybe you've been in a committee like AU, something like that, can that be included on the application?
Most definitely. Do we have any more questions? Okay.
Thanks. My name is Bongani. I wanted to find out in terms of the 3 tracks, from the 40, is there a certain quota for each, or you just randomly pick the best applicants? And as you said, if let's say there's more in entrepreneurship and there's space available for community service, would you slot them in there?
So let me say, across the different countries, we all have our different objectives in terms of how we select participants. But when it comes to selecting, dividing across the different tracks, we don't actually apply a certain number to each track. But we try to have as much diversity as possible across the different tracks. So you may find that we have more entrepreneurs that apply, or you may find that you have more people from the public management field. But we definitely make sure that we try and make it as diverse as possible.
Thanks.
So just to piggyback on his question, so if you, for example, are an entrepreneur and you want to pivot into public administration, for example, is that something that a person can do in their application? Or would you guys just still want to push them back into like the entrepreneurship side?
Please just rephrase that for me.
So you guys have one of the courses is public administration, correct?
Public management.
Yeah, public management rather. If a person has no experience in that field but wants to pivot into that field, can they select that for themselves?
So as we had, I think someone had asked something a little bit similar to that question earlier. We focus on what you are currently doing. Yeah. So you may in your application say you have ambitions of pivoting to entrepreneurship or public management, but we will focus on the work that you have done so far.
Okay, and then place the person
accordingly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good day, my name is Inola Badwe. I'm now being optimistic. So say you're selected, you went through the application process, you selected for the semi-finalist interviews. What are the now tips and guidelines in terms of preparing for the interviews?
Okay. I'm going to switch over to our alumni here because she has been through that process and she can give you all of the tips and tricks.
So if I understand your question correctly, is what do you do in the interview? Now you've over the process, you're now in the interview stage. What do you do in the interview? So the first thing that I would say is know your application, right? So before you interview, go through your application. The website, once you've submitted the application, you will get a PDF version of the application you've submitted. So you'll have that on your responses, right? So go through your application, know what you've said in your application. Secondly, you have a very short amount of time to make an impression in your interview, right? So what you want to do is you want to hit the hot spots, right? When you are being asked questions, try to limit it to maybe about 5 hotspots that you want to bring across to the interview. The questions on the application will range, right? Some of you might have seen some of the application questions are around, for instance, what do you think you will learn from this experience, right? That is something that's really important to bring across to the interviewer, that I believe that this will enhance the work that I'm doing because XYZ, I'm aware that this is something that's happening in the US, or that the US could open a door for me to learn about this a little bit more. So try to limit what you are saying to the most important things that you want to bring out of your application. And then lastly, the whole thing about the program is that that silver thread that runs through each of the tracks, which is what is your contribution to the community, right? So also that, try to make sure that you hit that as a point in your responses. What am I bringing to the community? What is my role in the community? How will this experience help me enhance my role in the community, in the work that I'm doing as part of building the community, right? So I would say those are the most important things. I think the other thing is to that might make you stand out as well, which is something that I applied twice for the fellowship. The first time I didn't get in, the second time I got in. So that's also something you need to bear in mind, that you might not get in on your first try, but that doesn't mean that your application is substandard or something. It probably just means that they've reach the quota or that there's just not enough space for people of your, in your space, right? So that don't get discouraged. I know people in my cohort have applied 5 times and only got in on their 6th chance. So it's not that you, so long as you still meet the requirements, it's not that you are eligible to apply again, right? So, but what I'm saying is, what I learned from my first interview versus what I tried to do in my second interview was that I tried to also I actually focused a lot more on the niche that I am contributing to in the community, right? So what is the gap in the community that the work that you're doing is addressing, right? And then how is your experience through this program going to help you further that goal, right? So also highlight the problem that you're working on. So I work a lot with I'm a health rights activist and attorney, but I also work with children in education, right? And part of the work that I do with education is not just limited to tutoring mathematics. It's also around issues in the children's homes, issues that they issues regarding sexual orientation, issues regarding xenophobia, that kind of thing. How do I give a holistic experience to these children, right? So what are the other things that, over and above what I'm doing, which is bridging the gap between our education system and what they ought to be offered in school, what else am I doing to enhance this? And how else is this program going to assist me in doing that? So I would say those would be the key things that you probably would want to have a look at and probably want to touch on. And the questions will vary, but make sure that you always bring it back to those points, right? So that you can get the best out of that interview.
Maybe we just ask a question. And probably put it for both. You can choose to pick depression. In terms of the applicants, is there a section where the applicants will be asked to disclose, like the mental well-being? If they have a case, for example, mental health, where they have to disclose, so that you know who you're dealing with, or how does it work?
Okay, okay, I can answer that. So I have a history of depression and anxiety, major depression, chronic anxiety. It's never gonna go away. But in my application, in the actual application, what they ask is, do you have any disability, right? So that would relate to physical disabilities, right? So after you've been accepted and whatnot, there are a few other questions that they ask you in terms of what accommodations they can lend to you when you are in the US. And that obviously, then they would need to know what medical needs do you have, right? And disclosing something like, I do have a history of depression, I am on antidepressants, that, is something that you might choose to disclose. Yeah. But what I do want to say is I don't think that it disqualifies you in any way. Yeah.
Yeah, this is specifically for the business stream. After you come back, is there any additional support given to you, like maybe funding or mentoring?
I think we can both take this.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, we have an alumni association called SALSAC. And what SALSAC does is it was created by alumni for alumni, right? And this is a network that is meant for us to be able to continue engagement with our alumni, but also for alumni to be able to support each other, right? So when we say support, we mean we have many opportunities that we have across different programs that we offer as the embassy that you're able to participate in. But we also come back to our alumni on a regular basis in terms of looking for speakers and looking for organizations to implement some of our programs. So we continue our relationship with our alumni for years past the actual experience that you have during the exchange. Maybe Kanisa can speak about any engagement that you've had since.
Yeah. So something that my mentor said when I was applying for the program was the best part of the program you might think is, the experience of going to the US and doing all of that. But the best part of the program is after, when you are an alumni, because now you are part of a group of people who are in the industry that you are in, or who have associates in the industry that you're in, who can connect you, who can open doors for you. And I mean, I've seen that with myself and the work that I do, in the way that my cohort and other cohorts have supported me. But the other thing that is also quite great about the program is that you get to apply for certain grants, right? So there are grants that are available to alumni and to current fellows that you probably wouldn't be able to get into if you weren't an alumni, right? So sometimes they would say we need 2 alumni to be working on issues that address X, Y, Z. We are willing to offer X amount for this project, and then you can apply, and then you can advance the work that you do if it falls within those projects through these resources that you get through the grants. So it's an amazing world after the fellowship that is just filled with connection and filled with opportunity. So yeah.
Do we have any more questions in the room?
Hello, my name is Simone, and I'm hearing things about entrepreneurship and social impact, but it's not the entrepreneurship part. I'm not involved in it that much, and I started doing volunteering work this year and also the leadership spaces is something that I just got involved into this year. And I'm just asking, and I would say maybe I don't have enough experience in that field yet. So I wanted to ask that, am I being optimistic by applying now? And I'm not 25 years even. So I'm asking if I'm being optimistic by applying now, or maybe I should wait until next year where I know that I have enough experience.
I think I touched a little bit when I said we don't discourage anybody from applying. Right? So if you want to apply this year but you don't necessarily feel ready, maybe it's worth just getting that experience of going through the process of applying, and then next year you also know where you need to tweak and what you need to do to strengthen your application. But I'd say give it a shot, apply. We would never discourage anybody from applying to the opportunity.
The upper age limit of 35, when does it apply? During application or when fellows depart?
So at the time of departure, you need to be within the, what is this? Within the age. I think we've come to the end of our questions, of our Q&A. So we are going to say goodbye to our online audience, and then we'll still have, I think we have about 30 minutes left to engage in the room. Maybe you might have additional questions. You might want to come to us, ask us about any other programs that we run here at the Embassy and the American Corner. But we are still here and available to you if you need any information.